Have you just downloaded the new Rubrik Security Cloud PowerShell SDK and you're sitting at your keyboard wondering, well, what do I do now? Don't fret, we've got you covered in a brand new series covering off everything PowerShell and Rubrik Security Cloud. So buckle up. All right, so welcome to our first video about using the Rubrik PowerShell SDK to connect to Rubrik Security Cloud. Now, as most of you are aware, Rubrik now serves up data using a GraphQL API, and having a bit of knowledge about GraphQL will certainly help you out as you follow along for the rest of the videos in this series. So if you want, I'm going to put a link in the description to a playlist where I talk about all of the benefits and give you sort of an intro to everything Rubrik and GraphQL. You can go ahead and pause this, go check that out, then come back here. So for those of us looking to forge ahead, let's dive in and we'll talk about how to install, configure, and connect to Rubrik Security Cloud using our new PowerShell module. All right. The Rubrik PowerShell module is published up here on the PowerShell gallery. If you simply search for Rubrik, you'll find a few of them. The one we're looking for here is titled Rubrik Security Cloud. Now, we could go ahead and download the module from here and install it manually, but honestly, the easiest method to install a PowerShell module is using PowerShell itself. So let's do just that. We'll just simply run install module and pass Rubrik Security Cloud as our module name. And then I'm going to go ahead and also specify the -- allow pre-release switch. The SDK itself is still in pre-release, but once it's in GA, you won't need to do this unless you really want to get that latest and greatest code. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and specify -force as I already have it installed and would like to simply overwrite it. So as we can see, it's pulled down the module and installed it on our system. Now we can go ahead and import it with the simple import module Rubrik Security Cloud commandlet. So the first thing that we need to do to our RSC instance is connect. If you're familiar with our old SDK, you know that we had a few different options to connect to Rubrik. We could use an API token, we could use basic auth with a username and password, or we could authenticate with a service account. Moving into the new module, our only option available to connect to Rubrik Security Cloud is with a service account. So let's jump into RSC and create one. All right, so we'll head to settings, then we'll select users and access, and finally service accounts. So I'm going to go ahead here and click to add a new one, and I'll give it a name. Let's call it, just say demo, and go ahead and give it a description. Let's say, a demo account for SDK video, and I'll go ahead and make this an administrator account. And finally, I'm going to click add. So now we're on this screen here. I'm going to go ahead and select to download the service account file as a JSON to my local machine. Now, if we wanted, we could simply open up that JSON file and extract out the client ID and secret and connect to our RSC instance with that. We can see here that we can run connect RSC, and we do have a client ID and client secret parameter. So that's exactly where this information will go. But we also have a couple of other ways that are a bit more secure than having secrets flying around in plain text. First, we can use the module to read in that plain text service account file and generate us an encrypted service account file that it can then utilize for authentication. So let's take a look at how this is done. The first thing we'll need to do is to run the set RSC service account file commandlet. Now this commandlet takes two parameters. First, we have the input file path parameter, in which we'll go ahead and pass the downloaded JSON file that we just retrieved. And the second parameter is the output file path. This is where the encrypted version will be stored. So let's go ahead and specify my .rubrik hidden directory, and I'll use demo as our file name. So as you can see, after I execute this, it's prompting me to delete that clear text file that we just downloaded, as it's already stored the information, but more securely and encrypted within that output file path. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to this, as it's never a good idea to leave client ID and secrets just lying around in plain text. So from here on in, the SDK will simply read from that newly generated file. And since the URL of our RSC instance is also located within that encrypted service account file, we don't need to specify anything at all to connect to RSC. We can simply just run connect-RSC. Now, if you wanted to use multiple service accounts, maybe one for running database type scripts and one for running SLA management type scripts, this is also possible. Here, I'm going to go ahead and run the set service account file commandlet again, and this time I'll specify another service account JSON file that I've created, this dbadmins file. Again, it outputs the encrypted file and deletes the plain text. To connect with this, I can simply just use the service account file parameter and point it to whatever service account I'd like to use. So for my database admins, I just simply pass it my database file here. And if I wanted to use the original service account file, I could just send the path to it. Now, finally, we have one more way to connect, and that's using the -from-env parameter. Now, this will connect using information found within our local environment variables on whatever client that you're using to run PowerShell. So in order to use our from-env parameter, we need to specify some specific environment variable and have that configured. You can see here that I'm setting up my RSC service account file variable as an environment variable with the path to my encrypted service account information. Now, if I go ahead and run connect RSC and pass it the -from-env parameter, we'll see that it pulls the data out of that environment variable and connects for us. So we're connected now, and we can go ahead and run some of the commandlets to get data from our RSC instance. For instance, I can go ahead and run the get RSC VMware VM commandlet here, and voila, there's a list of all my VMs configured within Rubrik Security Cloud, and I can begin automating things to my own desire. Now, you might have noticed a lot of blank or null fields are returned here, and this is where having some knowledge of GraphQL might really come in handy. Now, don't worry, we're still able to get all of this data within something called our core commandlets. We are just not doing it by default with what we call wrapper commandlets. And don't fret, in our next video, I'm going to go over all of the architecture and explain exactly what core and wrapper commandlets are, so be sure to follow along. So there we have it. We went over how to install, configure, and connect to Rubrik using the Rubrik Security Cloud PowerShell SDK. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. The best way is probably just dropping a comment below here on this video. Now, as I mentioned, this is just the first part of a bigger series, so you might want to subscribe and click that notifications icon as well, so you can be notified as any new videos come out. Up next, we're going to discuss the architecture of the SDK, and I'll show you the difference between our core commandlets and our wrapper commandlets, which will basically lay out the foundation for you to get started writing your own PowerShell scripts, automating the various Rubrik tasks. Thanks for watching.